Ahoy and welcome back. So I did promise that I would not be reviewing any more Greenlight 118 Indy cars, and I've held true to that promise because we are now officially in the IXO era of IndyCar diecasts, and there's been a lot of apprehension around this switch to IXO from Greenlight. Of course, Greenlight's been involved since 2004, and I've seen a lot of commenting and speculation about price points and what the quality is going to be and all that stuff. And for those of you that do not know or are not familiar with IXO, they've really cut their teeth in sports car diecasts, mainly like 143s, as well as rallying diecasts the last couple of years. And IXO has been very hit and miss in their products. They've had some really good ones back in the day, like their old Le Mans cars, probably like early to mid 2000s, and they've had their misses, like some of the more recent releases, like the Ford GT 143 and all that. So I understand the apprehension because, again, IXO has been very hit and miss. But now we have a tangible product in our hands. Now, interesting thing about this is we have a tangible product in our hands before the Indy GP. This is something that Greenlight had struggled with for many years prior of getting stuff out before the Indy 500, and it was almost going to be excusable for IXO to completely miss the Indy 500 on getting products out, but they got them out a week and a half ahead of when we're used to the last number of years. And for them, it's completely new everything except for the box, and we'll get into that. But here we go. The first wave is out, and I am very much happy to be one of the first to review it. And if you want to get your hands on some of the new 118s and 164s, I picked this one up from my good friends over at Gutswear, really the best private party merch shop that you can find. You know, they're not tied to IMS or, Shop IndyCar or IMSA or anything like that, but they have all the same merchandise, usually for a little bit cheaper, and they're all at the races, and there's some pretty stand-up people. You can buy their stuff on their website, you can buy it from their eBay, or just find them at an IndyCar race or an IMSA race. They're there. And certainly enough, it is great to see these in stock, and Gutswear was the first to get it, but get it quick because they are going really, really quickly. So, before we get into the diecast itself, we're going to look at the box. Now, we typically do cover the box in these reviews, but I do want to point out that this is pretty much par for the course, exactly a Greenlight box. I mean, you have the quote on the back. I mean, it all looks the same. Now, today's review model is of the Pato Award 2025 IndyCar diecast, and we have it right here. Now, we're not really going to cover the diecast, the Pato Award side of things too much. We're going to be more in on the IXO version. We're going to obviously compare it to its Greenlight counterpart, and we'll really see where this stacks up. And my first in-hand impressions of this car is somebody listened. Somebody actually listened to the incessant griping and complaining, and they actually gave us tangible progress at a similar price point. I know some people are mad that the price jumped $5, but for what you're getting, it has been a really nice jump, and let's get into why. So there are some good things, there are some bad things. Let's start off with one pretty bad thing. The wings on this car, the front and rear wings, are plastic. Yes, you can see it right there. They are indeed plastic. Now, why did they do this? I'm playing devil's advocate here. This isn't sponsored or endorsed by IXO, but one thing that I kind of complained about way back in the day when the road course kit came out was that the wings looked kind of bulky. And that's true, and they have looked bulky. This kind of takes that away, and it's not as fragile as, say, resin would have been for these. So I understand the reasoning behind plastic, but it's still a downside. Now, one upside is that each of the elements on the front wing are individual elements. I don't know if you can really see it, but let me You can kind of see through right there, but each element is, its own piece. There is actually like little gaps between the front wing elements, which is cool. Also on the front nose, we have the spot where the front nose camera would go. I don't think they still use that camera spot, but that little indenture on the front nose is there. You do have a pretty pronounced wicker going up the nose, and then you can see the shock cover. It's not too terribly different than what we had from Greenlight. One nice upside though is that we do actually have like brake ducting detail right there by the front tires. And another nice change is the front tires themselves. They don't have a finish to them. They're very raw. They're very rubbery because they are rubber. Now, they do have a little bit of trouble like freewheeling, as you can see. Like if you push it, there's a lot of friction on the axles and all that. But we do get to see a feature we have not seen since the IRO5 casting, which is posable steering. That makes a nice return. It's something that we complained about quite a bit from Greenlight when we talked about how downhill their product had went, that we used to have posable steering, opening engine covers and all that, and it's nice to see a feature brought back in. Another nice feature, and the reason I'm doing the road course car first is because ultimately their most changes came with the road course car. The aero screen is different. Now, there are going to be oval configuration as well as road course configurations, as you see in front of you. And right now in IndyCar, there are two different configurations of aero screen. The road course version has more vents on it to kind of allow better air circulation in the car. And then the oval variation is the original variant we saw introduced in 2020. And this here has the correct road course configuration, as you can kind of see the indentures for the vents right there, which is really, really nice. Another nice addition to this car is the fact that you have these little like carbon flaps on the side of the aero screen where air inlets can go to feed the driver more oxygen, something that was an issue in the first year of the aero screen in 2020. As for the roll hoop and all of that stuff, it does look very much more well proportioned. It is a lot thinner. It's less bulky than the Greenlight variation. And again, we'll compare them here in a minute. On top of the roll hoop, you can see this little notch right here, and that is for the onboard team camera, not the onboard camera itself. But if you remember back during the AeroKit days, the team seemed to love to put GoPros right here to capture their own footage, but it would also block the onboard cameras, and that would be during like practice and qualifying and stuff like that. Well, IndyCar's solution was to put a camera that was specific to the teams, like have it molded into that roll hoop, and that way there's nothing blocking the onboard camera. And that was added, I think, 2021, 2022, but it is present in this casting. Inside, we have a completely new headrest, which is accurate to kind of like the aero screen variation. And tangibly, you can put the sponsors, the TV sponsors right in here, but it is there. Completely new steering wheel that actually has data and all that stuff on it. It looks like a modern IndyCar steering wheel. There is actually decals and printing on there. And then you have seat belts in the cockpit itself. I don't know how easy that is to see, but there is seat belts in there. Now, they're not like an actual fabric like you'd see on a custom. They're actually just decaled onto the seat, but it is nice. You can see the silver buckles and all that fun stuff there. On the under tray, you have the correct road course under tray. If you did not know, on the road course configuration, the holes in the under tray are mostly covered up, and on the oval configuration, they are more pronounced and more open. And this being a road course car, it'd be closed off. It's just a little notch right there. Another nice little feature here is there are radiator blockers in place because. Let me go back here real quick. So with the Greenlight cars, these were just open holes. Now on the real Indy cars, depending on what the teams are doing and all sorts of stuff, it's one of the few like small little aero things you can do. But you can install little blockers here to restrict airflow into the radiators, and that is present on this car. Suspension is plastic, as kind of per the course. But now we get to something that Greenlight had the opportunity to rectify when they first unveiled this kit, which is, or their version of the road course kit, I should say, which is the side pods. These look a lot more refined, a lot skinnier, less bulky, and they're kind of convexed inwards, which is correct for the road course variation. And get you a nice little view right there. They are convexed inwards, and it is accurate to the road course configuration for Indy cars. Now on the oval cars, these are flush. So basically it's a straight like 9-degree bend over, and these are filled in. But on the road course, you do have this kind of concaved surface right there. As for the rims and tires, brand new rim molding. It's obviously not the same as, say, 2004 like we have with Greenlight. And then inside you can see an actual brake disc that is fixed in place, which is not surprising considering, again, IXO does make sports car diecasts. Now we get to the rear wing. It is plastic, once again, very kind of flexible and stuff like that. You do have to be careful. But you do have these little arrow louvers here, which were missing from the Greenlights. These are not really like painted in or anything like that, you know, but it is nice to have at least that etching detail on there. You can see right back here at the base of the engine cover, you have the mount or the adjustment points for the rear wing. On the back, you do have IndyCar Hybrid, since this is a 2025 version. And then you can see the longer rear attenuator. You can see your camera space. You could also see your caution light on the back, and then some nice silvering detail for the starter hole and all that stuff. You have your air jack plug right there. The suspension for the rear looks very nice, very complicated. You can actually like make out like CVs. You can make out your wishbones, all that stuff. Once again, you do have your brake cooling ducts right there. And then this side, again, mostly the same. Underneath your camera pod, you do have your transponder, which is fixed there. Something else, you do actually have a little indent in the casting right here for where they put a rod through to tow the cars out to the pit lane. If you didn't know, Indy cars don't actually drive to the pit lane. They get towed out on a tug cart, and they just stick a rod through the roll hoop and facilitate that way. And then even detailed in there is where the LED panel used to go. We used to have like position indicator panels in IndyCar way back, and it debuted in 2015, and then they kind of ditched it after 2019 after some on again, off again use. And that panel has just kind of become, you know, just a fill-in panel for where the aero screen connects. But you can see where the LED panel used to go and where the aero screen connects and all that fun stuff. And your fuel buckeye right there. And yeah, so let's talk about this, and let's kind of actually put it side by side with its counterpart. So what are the impressions here? The Greenlight is heavier. There is a more raw diecast feel to it. However, the Greenlight has nothing on this car when it comes to details. You know, when you look at this, you know, the front wings do look massively bulky. You have these giant cutouts on the under tray, which are inaccurate. You have on the flicks, this is the design I was talking about, which is not accurate to the road course car. Rear wing looks big and bulky. You know, if you look at the roll hoops, look how fat this one is versus how like skinny and almost just more realistic the IXO looks. One thing I will complain about is, and this is a really prevalent issue on the 164s, and I'll actually position it like this, but how high the front end sits up. You know, the front wing looks like it's, you know, like a foot off the ground if it were, you know, to scale. But when you look at these two cars, you know, they may look similar. Part of that's IndyCar's fault because they haven't really changed anything with these cars. But in terms of a scale model, IXO has actually listened to, you know, more intricate collectors. You know, people who actually pay attention to detail and stuff like that. And they have produced a car that is actually a really good representation of what a IndyCar diecast should be in the year 2025. When it came to Greenlight, they were very much stuck in 2018 and stuff like that. And, you know, this would have passed in 2018 as a proper diecast. But IXO has brought something new and refreshing to the table. It really is a breath of fresh air in the IndyCar collector market. The reason I haven't been buying IndyCar diecasts for a while is because it's the same product all the time. It's bland, it's inaccurate, it's a waste. This here is actually a reason to want to get back into collecting these things because it is detailed. $85, which is what, these will retail for, it doesn't seem as much of a financial hit because it's almost like it's a model kit in terms of detail compared to what we had last year and the years before that. And it's actually an acceptable product. So, my biggest gripe is with the wings being plastic, which is not, and again, I gave them a reason why that's okay. So, I can say with confidence that this is not an Auto World type situation like we had in 2014 when they had the licensing. The 164s are rough. I've seen them in person decal-wise and they are rough. But the 118s have been really well refined and it's actually a quality product. So, with that said, I hope that some of the doubts and iffiness about IXO making these Indy cars has been settled. This paddle car actually turned out really well. There probably will be some quality control issues, and my advice on that is kind of sort through them. Find one that's as good as you expect it to be. There will be quality control issues. Just bear with them, let them get it right. Because this is a completely new foray into a new American market, because IXO did not have an American footprint before. They spun off a completely new company called IXO America to do this. And just give them time. Let's see what the product is in 1 year from now, and I'm sure it'll be an improvement. And I'm, being optimistic with that. But as for now, based off of what I've seen from this Pato Award 2025 118, there's a lot of potential and there's a lot of promise, and I'm optimistic for the IndyCar diecast market going forward. I think it's in good hands. So, with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the review of the new IXO 118s, at least on road course trim. We'll take a look at the oval trim here in a day or so, and we'll see how that one stacks up. But, for me, this one gets a thumbs up. And that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.